Welcome to Bytes of Code. In our last video, we were able to start using the microphone and actually talk to our computer. We used the speech recognition module and actually converted our microphone audio to a text string. And with this, we were able to send our computer commands. We were able to tell it to open Notepad, and this is what we're able to do now. But we're going to add a couple more commands. We're going to add the ability to search Google, and we're actually going to tell our computer goodnight and send it off to sleep. It sounds really corny, but it'll be pretty cool. But before that, what we want to do is start to learn about a try except. So how to use that is going to be putting the word try and a colon, and then we're going to push all of this over to the right. We're going to tab it or indent it so that it's within this try. And then at the end of this try, we add the word except and then a colon. And what this is doing, this is basically going to help to catch any errors within this block. Any errors, so anything that went wrong at all. There's an issue with the speech recognition module, or maybe some of our code logic is not working right. We will be able to catch that exception. So let's do a little example where we just say error. So right now, if we were to run this, nothing would happen. Well, let's run it. Nothing were to happen. It's just going to be saying ready for speech. And we would never get to this. But what we would need to do in this case is, let's just say we're pretending that there's an error. We're going to do it right here at line 14. So at line 14, we are pushing an exception. We're forcing an exception. And we see here that we are now getting printed with tons of errors because we're in an infinite loop. So what's happening here is we're creating an error, we can say. And then line 31, we are printing the error, and we are going back into the line 11 infinite loop. So we're always going to be printing this. It's still printing this. It's printing a lot. And if you notice, like line 15 to line 30, how it's kind of grayed out, it's because the Visual Studio Code, or our IDE, is recognizing that since we're forcing or creating an error here, an exception, then the rest of the code will not run at all. So it's kind of graying it out, kind of to tell us like, hey, just so you know, this code is basically useless. So we're going to take out that little exception that we created, and we're going to actually add a very specific exception. We're going to catch exceptions if they are from our speech recognition unknown value error. And this is a nice exception to catch because this is going to tell us that it was unable to recognize our speech. So let's give a quick example. So we didn't say anything after the microphone was listening. So we get this very specific exception, unknown value error. And this is a very specific exception because if we were to add our bug again, then we just get an exception. We are not able to properly handle this bug, this exception. Our code actually crashes, and we're not able to continue our loop or to handle this in a very, we can say, seamless manner. So this is very specific, this exception at line 31. This is catching only exceptions from our speech recognition unknown value error. There's another exception that we can catch, and we can stack these exceptions. We can catch multiple specific exceptions. So here we're catching a speech recognition request error. This is a more generic speech error. So we're just going to say speech error occurred. And what we've done here is also assign this exception as a variable. So we're also going to print this variable here. We're going to do our f string, so f and then your regular string. And how to print the variable is we wrap it in these brackets and put our variable inside of it. Let's try this now, but we are going to actually create this specific error. So now we can see, we're going to stop this. We can see that we have created this very specific exception, given it basically the error string. We can call it the exception message maybe, and we've caught it here where we say speech error occurred, and in E we were able to print out what the exception message was. So this is how you would kind of catch an exception and print out what the problem was if that exception had a message for you. Now there's one more exception we're going to do. We're going to do just a generic exception. So a generic exception in print generic error. And this will show you why the positioning of the exceptions are important, because we used to be able to catch this speech request error where we would say speech error occurred. Now we're throwing the exact same exception. We're creating the exact same bug or exception we can say in line 14, but we're no longer hitting either of these. We're actually just hitting here. Because this is such a generic exception catch, this is going to catch everything, and it will not make it to these very specific types of exception catches. So in order to fix this problem, what we would do is we would just put our more generic exceptions towards the end. So if we run this again, even though we have a generic exception included in our try except, we are only catching right now our request error when we say speech error occurred. But our exceptions are still good to have, our generic exceptions, because in this case we have a regular bug that has nothing to do with the speech recognition. It's just a regular bug that's happening, and even though it's nothing to do with the unknown value error exception, it's nothing to do with the request error exception, we are still able to catch it because it's a more generic exception. So this more generic exception we can still include in our try except, and it might help also to have this exception message included in our print statement. So I'm going to add the EX here as our F string. So now that we have good exception handling, let's add another portion of our if statement. So we're going to do elif, and if we say search Google for, we're going to follow the same pattern as our open notepad. It's going to be in text.lower. Don't know why R is uppercase. Text.lower. We're going to create a new variable called query. This is going to be equal to text.lower .split. And in our split, we are going to search Google for. That's going to be our parameter in our split, and a space. I'm adding a space here, and it's going to be the second item in this split statement. So let's take a look more about this split. Here are a couple examples of the split. Let's first take a look at this. The sentence is just a string. This is a sample sentence. If we have our split, then what this is doing is creating the string into a list. In this case, the default is going to be just splitting it by the words, or we can say by the spaces. So we don't see any spaces in this string. This is just a string with the list, and in this case they're just words because we're not giving it any specific parameters inside of this split. Now if we were to have a parameter inside the split, let's just say we wanted a comma. So we have here apple, comma banana, comma orange. Now we're able to split it based on the comma. So we see here, instead of having commas, we are creating our list, our items, our fruits we can say, but we're just using commas as defining where we want to split our string. Another example could be using banana. If we use the word banana, we'll actually see the word banana will be excluded from our result. And what's actually happening is we're getting apple, comma, and comma orange, because it would be just as if we were just to split right here. So right here is the split. So this is kind of what the list is doing. It's creating the division right here between apple, comma, and comma orange, because we said, hey, the split text or this phrase or the delimiter is going to be banana. Taking that one step further, if we have our speech saying search Google for funny cat videos, let's take a look at what this would look like. We would have two items in our list. The first is going to be an empty string, and the next is going to be funny cat videos. So we're going to take our same pattern as the apple, banana, orange, and we're just going to add a split like right here. So this is kind of how it would look like to the program. To the left, it would be an empty string. There's nothing here. That's why our first item in our split is empty. And to the right of it, actually, it should be something like this. To the right of it would be funny cat videos. And that's what we have in our second item. So in our first item, again, is going to be empty string. That's index 0. In our second item, funny cat videos, which is index 1. So that's why in here, whenever we say search Google for, we're going to take whatever we said after that. We're going to use this split function and use search Google for. And I'm going to add a space as a delimiter. And whatever is after this is actually what we're wanting to search Google for. Now, how to actually search Google is we're going to do os.system. We're going to do an f string here, and we're going to do start https://www. So at this point, we're going to the URL google.com/search $q equals, and this is going to be our query with the squiggly brackets. So let's go ahead and try this out, because there's something important that we're missing. Though it'll be evident whenever this starts working. Search Google for cat videos. Now it keeps opening on another one of my screens, so I'm going to have to drag it over, but it is working. So we were able to open up a new window in our web browser, but we see that we search for cat videos. We see that down at the bottom. It says search Google for cat videos, but it only showed cat. And it's interesting, if you were to actually search Google for cat videos, we see that the query string is actually cat plus videos. So Google is using, instead of spaces, plus signs. So we're going to do another portion of string manipulation here in order to send this to Google properly. What we do is we take our query string, and it's going to be equal to itself, query string, but we're going to have it replace the spaces, and it's important not to leave this empty, to actually put a space in here, comma, plus. So what this line is doing is it's taking all the spaces out and just replacing them with the plus sign. Now let's run this code again. Search Google for funny cat videos. Again, this is opening in a new window, but we have it here. We have our plus signs here, funny cat videos, and it's opening a new window on its own, and this is exactly what we said. So this is working perfect. Let's add one more operating system command. This is going to be when we say good night computer. Again, we're going to follow the same pattern in text.lower. And this is going to be a very specific operating system command. It's os.system run dll32.exe, and I'm reading this powrprof.dll, comma, set suspend state 0, 1, 0. Now you can do a million different things with setting your computer to turn off, setting it to sleep, setting it to hibernate, setting it to restart, and if you're on Mac, there may be a different route entirely, but in this case, running Windows 10, this is going to set our computer into hibernate for me. This is what would happen. You would use something similar and use a different setting. You would flip a different setting in your actual operating system if you wanted to set this to sleep, but this sets it to hibernate for me, and this works fine. This is exactly what I'm wanting it to do. And just like that, we were able to search Google for, we're able to turn off our computer, we have a good understanding of the exceptions and even the split statement. If any of this is not working for you, please feel free to email me at bitesofcodejosh@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment or anything you want. You can post anywhere and just let me know. I'll take a look at the code and see exactly what's happening. In our next video, we're going to start incorporating OpenAPI into this personal assistant. And because it's so much cooler, we're actually going to incorporate text-to-speech and have OpenAPI talk to us with its result. But thank you so much for watching this video. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section. Go ahead and like this video for me. If you enjoyed this playlist, please subscribe to continue watching this personal assistant tutorial. But thank you guys again so much for watching, and I hope to see you at the next video.